1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
How are you going to wait for it?
Kind of warm up. You can just warm up. No, I just decided. There was a drum beat book that was actually. It has like. No, I just didn't.
Oh, my.
Was it as that? Okay, great to hear. There's gonna be a second one.
Really?
Yeah, there's gonna be another one.
How old am I?
Yeah.
17. Oh,
You're like the guy who directed
thank you. Our solidarity chair.
created too. She's gonna like take over it because like the guy is like down in like now I have all of this.
Oh, you're good?
Anyway, just a random thing. Where we say National Democrat.
Hey, sorry. Do you want me to give you the context about the sign? Sure. Can I like hold it? Oh, sorry.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. So we're gonna get started in a few, but while folks are setting up, we're gonna practice a few chants. So I'm Jay, and this is Rain, and we're your chant leaders for today. Let's remember to raise our voices today for those that aren't able to. Let's raise our voices for those that have been murdered by this fascist regime, as well as those that continue to be silenced and repressed. You know, all just for fighting for human rights and fighting for genuine democracy. So let's also be loud for our friends in the embassy so we can make sure that they can hear us as well. How's that sound? Jump, jump, Terror!
Jump, jump, Terror!
Jump, jump, Terror!
Jump, jump, Terror!
Never again, never again!
Never again to martial law!
Never again, never again!
Never again to martial law!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for the terrorist crimes!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for the terrorist crimes!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for the terrorist crimes!
When human rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that!
When students' rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that!
What do we do?
Stand up like that!
What do we do?
Stand up like that! Maki baka!
Wag matakot!
Maki baka!
Wag matakot! Ang tao, ang bayan!
Ngayon ay lumalaban!
Ngayon ay lumalaban!
Ang tao, ang bayan!
The people united!
Will never be defeated!
El pueblo unido!
Jamás será vencido! Lumalakas, lumalawak!
Lumalaban! Anak bayan!
Lumalakas, lumalawak! Lumalaban! Anak bayan!
Tama na! Sobra na!
People power
Babagsak! Uring manggagawa!
Upang mapagmalaya!
Uring manggagawa!
Upang mapagmalaya!
Alright, thank you all.
Hi everyone! Is this working? Is this
Hello?
Yeah!
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. Welcome today. I'm Sarah, the MC. I'm here with Onyx Zion, Washington, D.C. We're very excited to get started. And to kick off, we'll start out with Gabriella, starting with Delia and Joe. So, take it away.
Oh yeah.
Tell me what you want, what you really want. Tell me what you want, what you really want.
Justice!
Tell me what you need, what you really need.
Justice!
How we gonna get it?
People power!
I said, how we gonna get it?
People power!
How we gonna get it?
People power!
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe from Gabriella, Washington, D.C. Good afternoon. It's good to see all of you today. I'm joined here by the Vice Chairperson of Gabriella, D.C.
Warm militant greetings from Gabriella, D.C. We strongly condemn the horrific murders of unionists, human rights, workers, peasants, and fisherfolk organizers who were arrested by PNP using fake warrants and planted evidence. Among them was a couple, Shai Lamita Evangelista and Ariel Evangelista, from the fisherfolk community from Nasugbu, Batangas. They worked with a people's organization called Ugnayan ng Mamamayan laban sa pagwawasak ng kalikasan at kalupaan. Umalpas ka, the organization was working to expose mining issues, land grabbing, and climate change. The couple was killed while they were sleeping in their home in the morning hours. They were survived by her 10-year-old child. Nymphan Lanasas served as an aide for political prisoners in southern Tagalog and was arrested in front of her grandchildren at her home. Elizabeth Caboral, spokesperson of Bayan in Laguna, was also arrested after the police raided the office of Farmers Group Defend Yulu in Cabuyao. These are the desperate attempts of the 20s ruthless fascism and war against the poor and oppressed, including women and children who've been bearing the brunt of extreme political repression.
These are just some of the examples that happened recently in the southern Tagalog region. But also last December, Amanda Enchanes was illegally arrested along with her 1-month-old baby. Amanda was a peasant woman organizer under Amihan Cagayan provincial chapter and the daughter of the assassinated peasant leader and advocate Randy Enchanes. A staunch and human rights defender also, yung paralegal Sarah Alvarez was another target in Duterte's implementation of the anti-terror law. Alvarez was shot multiple times and killed on August 17th by unidentified men in Bacolod City, Cebu. Now, along with that, the National Office of Gabriella Philippines, women union leaders, prominent journalists, and others have been targeted by the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. Among them, more than 290 extrajudicial killings of farmers, 36 who have been peasant women. And also currently 98 women political prisoners are still behind bars. These attacks are all part of Duterte's counterinsurgency program, meant to crush all dissent, and particularly the National Democratic Movement. However, these killings only show that the dissent is justified, and now more than ever is very necessary. The work of many human rights defenders, organizers, and activists only shows that the rights and the livelihood of the people are being attacked and neglected. We are seeing more Filipino women worldwide continuing to organize and mobilize around the socio-economic conditions that are gravely impacting the rights and welfare of the Filipino people.
As Gabriela women in the United States, we recognize the urgent need to organize in our communities to defend Filipino women and to defend Gabriela. The killings under the Duterte's regime are only increasing while the U.S. State Department continues to provide a large military and package to our country. While we hold the Duterte's regime accountable for the murders and arrests of Bloody Sunday, we continue to demand that the Biden administration end all security assistance to the Philippines, because weapons sent to our country will always be used to the Duterte's regime to kill more human rights defenders.
U.S. imperialism only contributes to the worsening human rights situation of the people
and
escalates political killings. We call on solidarity allies and U.S.-based organizations and grassroots groups who believe in defending the human rights to support the Philippine Human Rights Act, which would cut U.S. military aid to the Philippines.
We encourage all kababayan in the United States to unite and join us in the struggle to stop the killings, defend Southern Tagalog, and oust this fascist regime.
Abante, babae! When women's rights are under attack, what do we do? What do we do? Mayaki baka!
All right, thank you, Gabriela. Next up, we have Migrante with Bernard.
Hello, I'm Bernard ng Migrante DC. I'll be speaking in Tagalog, and John here will provide simultaneous translation. Isang madalamhating Sabado sa inyong lahat.
A Saturday filled with grieving to all of us.
Tayong lahat ay narito ngayon. Kaharap ang gusali na sumisimbolo sa isang palpak na sistema at gobyerno na patuloy na binibigo ang mga migranteng Pilipino.
All of us are standing here before this building, which is a symbol of a government that has continuously failed its people.
Upang makidalamhati, makiramay, at upang gunitain ang ating mga marangal na kasama na walang awang pinaslang ng mga pulis at militar noong nakaraang linggo.
In order to give honor and pay respects to the memory of our honorable comrades who were brutally and mercilessly slain by this regime.
Anong klaseng sistema ang gumagamit ng dahas upang patahimikin ang mga boses na wala namang sinisigaw kundi para ipaglaban ang karapatan ng mga Pilipino?
What kind of system kills its very own people and silences the voices that are raising nothing but calls for justice and social change?
Sino ang mga berdugong duwag na ito na pinasok ang mga bahay ng ating mga kasama upang sila ay dakpin o patayin habang sila ay natutulog upang maibsan lamang ang pagod na dala ng maghapon na pagkikibaka kasama ang masa.
Who are these brutal and heartless butchers who raided the homes of these activists and comrades who are just taking a break and sleeping and trying to regain strength after a whole day of fighting alongside the masses?
Makalipas ang halos isang taon mula paslangin si Joey Porcia ng mga elemento ng rehimeng Duterte,
A year after Joey Porcia was slain by elements of the Duterte regime,
makalipas ang 26 na taon na ngayong linggo mula ng pabayaan ng gobyernong Ramos na bitayin ng Singapore ang OFW at domestic helper na si Flor Contemplacion,
26 years to this week, the Ramos government has allowed Flor Contemplacion, an overseas Filipino worker and domestic helper in Singapore, to be executed.
makalipas ang 40 taon mula nang ipautos ng diktadurang Marcos ang pagpaslang sa mga aktivistang manggagawa na sina Silme Domingo at Jean Viernes sa Seattle,
40 years after the Marcos government, by his presidential orders, ordered for the execution of labor activists Silme and Domingo Viernes.
narito na naman tayo, sama-sama na nagdadalamhati para sa ating mga pinaslang at inaping kasama.
We are all gathered here today in grief for our comrades, for the activists that were mercilessly brutally murdered.
Ilang taon, dekada at siglo na ang lumipas, ngunit patuloy pa rin ang pang-aabuso at ang pagyurak sa karapatang pantao ng mga manggagawang Pilipino sa ilalim ng sistemang sumasamba sa altar ng imperialismo, feudalismo at birokrata kapitalismo.
For how many years, decades, and centuries have the rights and welfare of Filipino workers and laborers been disregarded and put aside on the altar of the system that worships imperialism, bureaucrat capitalism, and feudalism?
Ngunit mga kasama, hindi lang kalungkutan ang nagdala sa atin dito sa harap ng embahada.
But comrades, we must remember, it is not only sadness that binds us together today.
Tayo rin ay dinala ng ating galit, hindi lang sa rehimeng Duterte, kundi pati na rin sa sistema na nagsilang sa mga taong katulad niya.
We are brought here together by our anger against this fascist tyrant and against this system that has given birth to dictators like him.
Narito tayong lahat upang singilin at panugutin si Rodrigo Duterte, si Dibold Sinas, si Antonio Parlade Jr. at ang mga taong nanunungkulan sa ilalim nila.
We are here to express our anger and to demand accountability from Rodrigo Duterte and his henchmen like Dibold Sinas, the PNP chief, Antonio Parlade, the head of Department of National Defense, and all of his accomplices in this bloody regime.
Narito tayong lahat na dala-dala ang nag-aalab na diwa ng ating mga pinaslang na mga kasama, at sa harap ngayon ng embahadang ito, tayo ay nangangako sa ating mga kaaway na hindi kailanman natin isusuko ang laban na sinimulan ng ating mga marangal na martir.
We are here to pay respect and tribute in the burning memory of our comrades, and we are here to make a promise, to make our vow that we will never stop the fight that they have started, the fight to change the system.
Ang ipinaglalaban ng mga manggagawa sa Pilipinas ay siya ring ipinaglalaban ng mga migranteng Pilipino sa lahat ng sulok ng mundo.
The fight of our comrades, our worker comrades in the Philippines is nothing but the same fight of every single overseas Filipino worker in every single part of the globe.
Lalo na ngayon sa panahon ng pandemya, litanya na ang mga kasuklaman na kinakaharap ng mga manggagawa at migranteng Pilipino.
Especially in this time of a pandemic, there is a litany of misery, of all the hardships that are faced by migrant workers and Filipino workers all around the world.
Inaharap natin dito sa aming pag-uorganisa, dito sa DMB, ang kawalan ng health insurance at kakulangan sa pagpapabakuna, ang kakulangan sa trabaho, ang pagnakaw ng sweldo, ang hindi pagbabayad ng sapat na oras sa trabaho, at kung ano-ano pa.
In our organizing here in the DMV area, we are meeting workers that are facing problems such as lack of vaccine access, wage theft, they're not paid with the hours that they worked, and lack of health insurance.
Kung sama-sama ang pagdurusa ng mga migranteng Pilipino at ng mga manggagawang Pilipino, sama-sama rin ang ating pakikibaka at paglaban.
We are not only together and bound together in our sadness and in our suffering, but we are bound together and we will stand together in our struggle.
Ipagpapatuloy ng migranteng at ng lahat ng migranteng Pilipino ang laban na pinausbong ng ating mga kasama sa Pilipinas. Ang laban kontra sa sistema na nagpapahirap sa kanila doon at siya rin nagpapahirap sa atin dito.
Again, we make our vow today to continue cultivating the seeds that were planted with the lives of our martyrs, the seeds of a struggle that was born for centuries and that we will not stop until the system is changed.
Ipagpapatuloy ng migranteng Pilipino ang laban para sa pambansang industrialisasyon upang hindi na kailangan pang lisanin ng mga Pilipino ang kanilang sariling bayan para lamang may ipakain sa kanilang pamilya.
We will continue to wage the struggle for national industrialization and creating jobs in the Philippines so that there need not be another migrant worker to add to the thousands that leave the country every day in order to put food on the table.
Ipagpapatuloy ng migranteng Pilipino ang paglaban sa karapatan ng lahat ng manggagawang Pilipino para sa patas at makatarungan ng mga kalagayan sa loob ng kanilang puok gawaan.
Migrante USA and all of its local chapters continues its commitment to fight for the rights and welfare of all migrant workers and overseas Filipino workers, especially in the conditions of their workplaces.
Ipagpapatuloy ng migranteng Pilipino ang paglaban para sa pambansang demokrasya at para sa kumikinang na kinabukasan kung saan wala ng Pilipino ang maghihirap pa sa ilalim ng mga mapanupil at mabang-aping sistema.
We stand among the ranks of all workers and all overseas Filipino workers to continue for fighting for a bright and glistening future that is filled with freedom and democracy for all, and that no one needs to leave behind their family in search of a better life.
Migrante ng bayan! Migrante ng bayan!
When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up!
When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? Okay. All right. Thank you, Bernard and John from Migrante. Next up, we have Kapitan Alliance with Carmela. Woo!
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carmela, and I'm one of the DMV regional coordinators of Kapitan Alliance. I was born and raised in Mindoro, which is part of southern Tagalog. Just across from my island is Batangas, where the couple Chay Limita Evangelista and Ariel Evangelista were killed on March 7 on Bloody Sunday. They were fisherfolk who worked as staffers with the ugnayan ng mamamayan laban sa pagwawasak ng kalikasan at kalupaan in Nagsubo, Batangas. It's terrifying because it's so close to home. Whenever I go back home to the Philippines, I always stop by Batangas because the only way to get to my island is by taking a ferry from the pier in Batangas. Bloody Sunday happened only 3 weeks after the police raid of the Lumad Backwit School in the University of San Carlos in Cebu, where the police arrested 26 Lumads, including 22 students, 2 teachers, and 2 tribe leaders. The PNP that are forcing the Lumad people out of their ancestral homes and shutting down their schools, denying the Lumad youth and students their access to education, is the same force that's committing murder against these activists. Duterte and the police and military have no regard for human life. They're intensifying their attacks against activists and environmental land defenders, and we're directly funding their crimes against our own people. Currently, the U.S. continues to send our tax dollars that funds the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police, which are agents of the Duterte administration. In the past 4 years, the U.S. has sent more than $550 million of military aid to the AFP and the PNP. The AFP and the PNP are responsible for grave crimes against humanity. And during these difficult times under the pandemic, the U.S. government should focus on helping their own people here in the U.S. Instead of funding the militarization in the Philippines, our taxpayer money should instead be spent on much-needed economic relief, education, and other social services. Kabataan Alliance is calling for the introduction of the Philippine Human Rights Act to suspend United States security assistance to the Philippines until human rights violations by Philippine security forces cease and the responsible state forces are held accountable. Endorse the PHRA and call on your representatives to support the bill. I am also one of the cultural chairs in FCA at the University of Maryland College Park, and I want to call on my fellow Filipino American students that are leaders and members of their Filipino cultural organizations in their own universities to be aware of what's happening in the Philippines and stand up against these human rights violations. As we plan for our Philippine Cultural Nights at the end of the year to showcase our culture, I want to remind you that this culture we love to celebrate comes from the Filipino back home. The cultural dances we love to perform come from the rural people in the countryside, from the farmers and the fisher folk who are struggling to continue their livelihoods and are being murdered for fighting for their rights by the PNP, and from the indigenous people like the Lumad that are being displaced from their homes by the AFP. Let us not forget their stories and uplift their issues. The struggle of the Lumad student is the struggle of every student. The struggle of the Filipino activist is the struggle of every Filipino, whether it be in the Philippines or here in the U.S. So as Filipino American youth and students, we must take part in the struggle of our people. Kabataan, unite! Fight for people's rights! Thank you.
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for Duterte's crimes!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for Duterte's crimes!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for Duterte's crimes!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for Duterte's crimes!
All right, thank you, Carmela, again from Kabataan Alliance. Next up, we have our open mic from our allies. Who's that? Who's that? For our Solidarity allies? Who's up there? This is just an opportunity for Solidarity allies to share and express words of anger and just, solidarity for the people of the Philippines. So this is an open floor. Feel free, anyone, to just come up and, express some words of solidarity. You also don't have to be part of an organization.
Thank you for coming out. My name is Talia. I'm with Panther Solidarity Organization. This is for all the allies. There aren't many white people here, are there? Everything that happens in the Philippines affects us. We're exporting all of this stuff to the Philippines and internationally. We need to stand up, tell your friends what's going on, and ask them why weren't they here today? Why aren't they supporting what's happening in the Philippines? And what's happening to our comrades who are being murdered in cold blood by the fascist regime of the Philippines? Why aren't the white people here? Why aren't our allies here to help those in the Philippines? Just talk to all of your comrades and make them realize we need to show up to really show international solidarity. I know we all talk about international solidarity, but international solidarity is getting out of your comfort zone and getting on the streets and actually showing solidarity with the Filipinos. Thank you.
Okay.
afternoon, sisters, brothers, and siblings and kasamas. I'm Andre Powell. I'm here today with a small delegation from Baltimore of the People's Power Assembly Baltimore. We join with you in showing our absolute outrage at once again the murders, the attacks, the arrest of working and poor people, labor organizers, people working in mass organizations that are organizing against the fascist dictatorship Rodrigo Duterte. We all know very well where the money comes from that helps to prop up Duterte. It comes from up the blocks and around the corner to that house that Joe lives in now. It comes from down the street at the end of Pennsylvania Avenue to that Capitol building where they pass the laws and they approve the financial measures to give to other countries that murder and arrest and harass poor and working people in those organizations that are working to make life better in those countries. It is with our solidarity that we say, you may recall in Central and South America, in the past few years during the past time that other guy that lived in the White House, when suddenly fascist governments were propping up and overturning the rightful elections of the people, such as Evo Morales run out of office. Bolsonaro, a fascist, was put into place. Several other leaders of countries in Central and South America. The governments went to the right. Right-wing puppets of the U.S. government and U.S. imperialism were put in place. But as we see, one of the most recent elections, and I can't remember the country, but it was overturned. Evo Morales in Bolivia, the person that won the presidency, they have overturned, they have stopped, they have beat back that fascist right-wing attack there in South America. And so, we see that as a plan, as the what is to become, that these fascist dictatorships do not remain. And just as they're starting to overturn them in South America, the people's movement will overturn Duterte's fascism in the Philippines. And the movement will continue not to replace Duterte with another fascist dictator, just the way he was replaced with some in between, but he replaced Marco. It is the people's movement that will continue to have victory. So we say continue to build the people's movement. We bring you solidarity here from the belly of the beast in Washington, D.C., of the political beast, from the financial belly of the beast on Wall Street, because it is the Wall Street backers that are backing Duterte. All those weapons used against the organizations of the poor and oppressed in the Philippines are stamped with one thing: made in U.S. on one side. The other side of the gun says financed in U.S. We stand in solidarity with the people of Southern Tagalog, the Lumad peoples of Mindanao, and all the revolutionaries in the Philippines fighting to overturn fascism in the Philippines and on to a movement of the people for liberation. Thank you.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
U.S. imperialists!
Number one terrorist.
U.S. imperialists!
Number one terrorist.
U.S. imperialists!
Number one terrorist.
The people united!
Will never be defeated.
The people united!
Will never be defeated.
The people united!
Katrina, and I'm with the Maryland Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, or MD-CHIRP. We organize in the Baltimore area, so it's great to have all these folks who came down from Baltimore. It's great to see you here. Maryland CHIRP is a solidarity formation, meaning it was formed and organized mainly to gather support from non-Filipinos, including white people, concerned about the U.S. role in the deteriorating human rights situation in the Philippines, and also solidarity allies who are committed to supporting the Filipino people in their centuries-long struggle for just and lasting peace. Maryland CHIRP is a member of iCHIRP US, which is an international coalition gathering support among solidarity for the Philippines. We are appalled and angered at the raids that resulted in multiple killings and arrests of activists who were fighting for basic rights: the right to eat, the right to work, the right to create a future for themselves and their families. We all know how those rights are denied to the majority of people in the Philippines and the majority of people in the US and all over the world. Our strongest means of self-defense against the cruelties dealt to activists in Southern Tagalog and the many more we can expect to see is solidarity. A fascist government can shoot, torture, stab, and hit all they wish, but no bullet or blade can break our solidarity. Yeah! I like that. Let's understand that the Philippine government is afraid of the people, the growing power of the people, and that's why they attack. It's not because they're attacking from a position of strength. They're striking out like a cornered wolf. In the face of these horrors, Maryland CHIRP is committing itself to organize with even more determination in support of the Filipino people. We've said it here, let's demand that the U.S. government put the lives of the Filipino people over their so-called strategic interests in Asia and cut all support for Duterte. Resistance is our right, solidarity is our duty.
From Maryland to the Philippines!
Stop the U.S. war machine!
From Maryland to the Philippines!
Stop the U.S. war machine!
Long live!
International solidarity!
Long live!
International solidarity!
Okay. Does any other solidarity allies want to speak? Going once? Okay. All right. Next up, we have from Anak Bayan, Geneva.
Lumalakas, lumalawak!
Lumalaban! Anak Bayan!
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Geneva, the Vice Chairperson of Anak Bayan DC. And thank you all for coming out here today. We are very agitated to see the solidarity in the struggle of the Filipino masses. Because time and again, the Duterte administration has failed to address the pandemic that has amplified the inequality and the social divide in which the poor have bore the brunt of. The Philippine economy has crashed in its worst recession in decades. Yet Duterte and his cronies are determined to spend more than 19 billion pesos to quell communist insurgency, and on top of that, 15 billion pesos in PhilHealth funds have been mishandled and have yet to be recovered. When they could have given these amounts for COVID-19 response and social aid. Isipin ninyo yun, na nauna pa ang pagbakuna ng hindi pa pinahihintulutang bakuna ang mga opisyal ng gobyerno at militar kesa sa mga health workers ng na araw-araw ay sumasabak at harap-harapang nilalabanan ang pandemya.
It's disgraceful that government officials and the military have received unauthorized vaccines before health workers who literally have to risk their lives to fight the pandemic with uncertainty.
It is clear that Duterte does not care about the Filipino people. The Bloody Sunday is the implementation of Duterte's whole of the nation approach. They have weaponized the law to silence dissent and vilify activism. In the early hours of Sunday morning, police have carried out synchronized and simultaneous operations serving blank search warrants after the fact that they've already trespassed the households of community organizers to plant weapons. When we say weaponizing the law, the police and the judges who serve these warrants know that accusing them of illegal possession of firearms would be non-bailable. To make matters worse, the police have not returned the bodies of 4 slain activists in Rizal to their families and eventually detained the relatives and the paralegals in the funeral home overnight. This is unacceptable. Hindi na ho ito makatao. This is no longer humane. Akala niyo ba kami ay basta-basta na lamang susuko sa aming kagustuhan mabago ang lipunan? Ang patuloy na pananakot, pag-aresto at pagpatay ng Administrasyong Duterte sa aming mga kasama at kababayan ang siyang magmumulat sa napakarami pang naapi. Karamihan ng mga nakusahan ay may hirap, kaya't nakapagtataka na ang PNP ay nakakahanap ng magranada o di kaya'y baril sa tahanan ng mga biktima sa kabila ng kahirapan at kawalan ng makain. Sa katunayan, ang panunupil ng Estado ang nagtutulak sa masa na tumahak sa landas ng armadong pakikibaka. Do you think we will give up in wanting to change society? The Duterte's administration's efforts in terrorizing, arresting, and killing comrades and compatriots has only aroused the many oppressed people. Many of the falsely accused are poor, and yet the PNP claims that they possess firearms such as grenades and guns when they could not even afford to buy food. The intensity of state repression forces the masses to take up radical means to liberate themselves, even if it means to take the path to armed resistance. Today, we remember Greg Dasigaw, who fought for farmers and provided relief operations in poor communities. Dumagat Randy and Puroy de la Cruz, who fought for indigenous rights of the Dumagat tribe in Sierra Madre. Makmak Bacasno and brothers Abner and Edward Esto, who fought for housing rights to address homelessness in Rizal. Environmentalist couple Chay Lamita and Ariel Evangelista, who fought for peasant and fisherfolk rights, and human rights and environmental activists, as well as Bayan Cavite's coordinator, Ka Manny Asuncion. Pinakamataas na pagpupugay sa inyong lahat. Tama na. Enough is enough. We condemn the brutal attacks on our kasamas in southern Tagalog. Anakbayan DC is calling for justice for victims of extrajudicial killings and illegal arrests. These attacks have only solidified our calls to oust Duterte and hold Parlade and Sinas accountable. Bumaba na kayo sa pwesto o harapin ang pagpapatalsik sa inyo ng taong bayan. Resign or be ousted by the masses! Together we mourn, but also honor the lives of martyrs who have wholeheartedly served the masses. Tandaan natin na ang maghimagsik ay makatwiran, ang lugar ng kabataan ay nasa pakikibaka. Padayon mga kasama at tuloy ang laban.
Alright, so for some of the folks that just arrived, I'm going to teach you all a chant. So the full chant is, Sino ang terorista, PNP, AFP, sila ang terorista. So my part is, Sino ang terorista, PNP, AFP, sila ang terorista. Alright, let's give it a few tries. Sino ang terorista? PNP, AFP, sila ang terorista. Sino ang terorista? PNP!
Ibagsak! Duterte mismo! Babagsak! At si Duterte mismo! Babagsak! U.S. imperialist! Number one terrorist! U.S. imperialist! Number one terrorist!
All right, thank you again from Geneva, from Anak Bayan, BC. Next up, we have from the Malaya movement, Joseph, with our call to action.
Hello everyone. Before I start, I just want to recognize that today, March 13th, is the 1-year anniversary when Breonna Taylor was murdered by police trying to execute a search warrant. Very similar to the 9 activists that were killed last Sunday. So when we demand for justice for the 9 activists, Emmanuel Asuncion, the husband and wife, Ana Marie and Ariel Evangelista, Makmak Pacasano, Melvin De Sigao, Poroy De La Cruz, and Randy De La Cruz, the siblings, Abner and Edward Esto. We want to add Breonna Taylor in our demands for justice. Till this day, no police that was involved in that shootout in Breonna Taylor's home has been arrested or convicted. And I'm sure that's what they're going to try to do with these 9 activists as well. There will not be any accountability, but we must stand and demand accountability. So, as we extend our solidarity to the people fighting for Black lives and Black liberation, we also are seeking solidarity for our national and social liberation for the people in the Philippines. The Malaya Movement Baltimore, the organization that I'm from, was formed to stop the killings, to stop the rise of a dictator, and to defend human rights and democracy in the Philippines. This is not something, I'm sure, unlike all the other organizations that are here. In fact, now that I say it, I think it's kind of crazy that we had to form an organization that explicitly had to say and stand these things. But we do not live in normal times. In the Philippines, there is a war criminal sitting as president who is unleashing his attack dogs, telling them to kill, 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 to to disregard human rights. And it is not just Duterte that is wrong. It is all those that are enabling him. It is like the ambassador that sits there in that embassy. He needs to be held accountable. There was, 3 months ago, the senator from Oregon, Senator Markley, had given him a call because one of his constituents complained that the Philippine government was red tagging them. This was a member of Gabriela USA that happened to be in Oregon. And Senator Markley asked what was going on. His response, he wrote an op-ed in a Philippine paper and basically said that if it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it must be a duck. Meant to say that she must be a terrorist. And for that response, all I have to say, if you sound like a fascist, you talk like a fascist, you must be a fascist, and you're not welcome here. You should be get kicked out. And not only you, every embassy staff that's in there that is not saying a word and what's going on in the Philippines should step down, leave, and not return. So who here is agitated? I'm a little bit agitated. So that rage, that grief, we need that, put that into action. And there is not a shortage of actions that we can do. And the first thing that we should do if you're not part of an organization is join one. The best way to honor those that have died is to take up those issues that they have fought for all their lives. Workers' issues, women's issues, urban poor issues, climate issues. This was what they were advocating for. And in the night, they were dehumanized, tortured, and killed. And if we want to honor them, I am begging you to go and join an organization. If you're not part of one, join a solidarity organization in the Philippines, for the Philippines. The other organizations mentioned the Philippine Human Rights Act. We're basically asking to starve the funding of the fascist Philippine National Police and Armed Forces of the Philippines. There is no reason why our tax dollars are going to fund those death squads when it could be going to services here like education and healthcare. We should also hold those accountable by making their world a little bit smaller. The likes of PNP Chief, Sina Stibo, the NTFL-CLAC spokesperson, Parlade. There is an act that we have called the Global Magnitsky Act, which basically would bar these people from coming to the U.S. and if they have assets here, to basically take and hold and freeze those assets. Last thing we need to do is also tell Biden, who promised during his campaign that he wouldn't play footsies with dictators. Yet here he is, sending his defense secretary and letting Duterte know that everything's okay, everything's business as usual. They've actually approved about $2 billion arms sale to the Philippines. We need to hold Biden accountable. So lastly, just this last message, when injustice becomes a law, resistance is our duty. They may be able to kill our freedom fighters, but there is no way they can kill the fight for freedom. Thank you again.
It is through collective action that we can make genuine change. So with that being said, I'm going to teach you all a chant that we have here. So the full chant is, who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down. Who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down. I said who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down. I said who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down. I said who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down. I said who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down. Who, we, when, now, we're going to bring Duterte down.
All right, last up, we have from Bayan, DMB, Jong.
Hello po! Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Isang mapagpalayang hapon sa ating lahat. A liberating afternoon to all of us. But can I first ask everyone to please raise their left fist and remain silent as we once again hear the names of the 9 kasamas murdered by the state forces just this past Sunday. Emmanuel Asuncion, Macmac Ryan Cruz, Abner Esto, Edward Esto, Michael De Sigal, Puroy De La Cruz, Randy De La Cruz, and the couple Chai Lamita Evangelista and Ariel Evangelista. Rest in power. These are the names of mothers, fathers, grandmothers, youth, fisherfolk, land defenders, and workers. They are gone too soon. They were taken from us. These are our kasamas. These are our comrades. They are not criminals. They are not terrorists. Stabbed with an ice pick on city streets, or stopped or shot at a bus stop in their sleep, in the comfort of their own home, inside their humble hut, grassroots office, and evacuee school. These are where the killings and raids occurred, mostly in the dead of night, like a thief, the acts of a desperate coward. But it isn't just Southern Tagalog, right outside Manila, that we're here today to defend. But the entire country is facing a de facto martial law. Negros, Panay, Eastern Visayas, and the Lumads in Mindanao. It's not just Southern Tagalog that is bearing the brunt of this fascism. It is not just Southern Tagalog against whom the Duterte regime and U.S. imperialism is waging its bloody war. People's organizations, unarmed civilians, and mass grassroots activists are being targeted mercilessly and ruthlessly as well. The Memorandum Order 32, the arrest and killings, the synchronized enhanced management of police operations, the anti-terror law. Please understand, the anti-terror law is only the latest in this long string of fascist policies that are enabled and enshrined into law by officials like the ones that sit at this embassy. But what is Duterte afraid of? What is he really afraid of? The state claims that the ATL, and in the op-ed that Joseph mentioned, he claims that the anti-terror law is for peace and order in the country. But really, what is peace? Chai was part of a seaside fisher folk organization. Nympha was a paralegal for human rights violations offenses. Elizabeth and Macmac defended their neighborhoods and their homelands from gentrification and development aggression. And Kamani, the Secretary General of Bayan in Cavite, he fought for workers' rights tirelessly, and he conducted relief operations because of the conditions made worse by this pandemic. Is that peace? Is that the order that Duterte wants? All we want is to live in a true social peace based on justice. These kasamas, these activists, these unarmed civilians fought for protection, services, and dignity that the Manila government would never provide. They fought for this new world, even though they knew deep within themselves that they may not live the day to see it. For as long as the ruling class and the ruling elite and their interest is defended, this is something that will never happen. And this social justice and peace is something that we must fight for every single day, with every fiber of our being, every day of our lives. Bayan is short for Bagong Alyansang Makabayan, or the New Patriotic Alliance. It was actually founded in 1983 in the midst of the Marcos dictatorship, with 1,000 mass organizations and over 1 million founding members, not quite unlike yours and mine. Bayan USA now has more than 30 member organizations. 3 of them are represented here today. Can I hear it from Gabriela, DC? Can I hear it from Migrante? And can I hear it from Anak Bayan, DC? So Bayan was founded at the height of a fascist dictatorship, not quite unlike the one that we're under today. So, learning from the lessons of history, will Duterte succeed in crushing us? No! Will Duterte succeed in silencing us? No! Bullets and bombs are what they're going to use against us, but our principles and our unity is our strongest weapon. The people will succeed. The people will always succeed. And this regime will fail. This regime will fail. Ambassador Romualdez, President Duterte, do not be surprised if we come back to this very spot with larger and stronger ranks. Do not be surprised if more and more are pushed to defend our people, to fight for change by any means necessary, even if it means taking up arms. Huwag kang magugulat, Romualdez. Huwag kang magugulat, Duterte. Babalik kami at babalik ng mas marami. Bilang na ang araw mo sa palasyo. Your days in the presidential palace are numbered. Now let us channel our collective grief, our anger, and build our organizations. We must build bayan. Join a bayan organization like the ones here today. Join Anak Bayan. Join Gabriela. Join Migrante. Patatagin natin ang bayan. Likhain natin ang bagong bayan. Wasakin natin ang sistemang lumikha sa mga diktador na katulad ni Duterte. Ang sistemang lumikha sa mga pasista at tiranikong diktador. By building our organizations, by building bayan, this is the concrete justice. This is the way that we will avenge the lives of our kasamas. This is the justice that will bring about the concrete fundamental change that these 9 kasamas and scores more over the centuries have paid the ultimate sacrifice for.
That's right!
Ang tao, ang bayan!
Ngayon ay lumalaban!
El pueblo unido!
Jamás será vencido!
The people united!
Will never be defeated!
Imperialismo!
Ibagsak!
Burokrata kapitalismo!
Ibagsak!
Feudalismo!
Ibagsak!
At si Duterte mismo!
Babagsak!
Say what? Si Duterte mismo!
Babagsak!
One more time, si Duterte mismo!
Babagsak!
Maraming salamat po at mabuhay ang sambayan ng nakikibaka!
Mabuhay!
Okay, thank you everyone for speaking and everyone for coming today, especially our Solidarity allies. We're going to take a group picture, but afterwards, everyone, if you can disperse out, that would be great. Alright, so we're going to take a group photo, but then afterwards, if everyone could sort of disperse out, head home, get home safely, that would be great.
Against here, so yeah, if everyone could please line up against here, the gate of this the embassy building. If you have any banners or placards or flags, feel free to bring them out. Yeah, we're gonna face Masa, so facing out. But maybe let's take a couple shots first, because like people's mouths are open when we Where is Diego? Taking a photo. Take a photo, Dave. Take a photo. Where's the? Should I take a pen? Yeah, try to take a pen.
When there's a red light, I'm going to try to stand back.
Try it again.
Solidarity on three. 1, 2, 3.
Solidarity!
Okay. Let's
Can you get a panorama? Try it now. Do it.
When people's rights are under